Hey guys, Mr. O here. I'm going to go over some things for our Chapter 1 test and give you a focus, hopefully, as you are studying. One of the things that you'll notice on the test as soon as you get it is that the baby steps are all over this test. Knowing what the baby steps are important. The order, the process to getting from baby step 1 to baby step 4, for example, what you do first, what comes next, those types of things. So if I say the very first thing you need to do is save for retirement, obviously that would be wrong, because the very first thing you do according to baby step 1 is to save $1,000 for an emergency fund. So even though the question was, what do you do first? It doesn't say baby step in the question, but it's actually a baby step question on the test. So the order is important. Know what the baby steps are. My focus, if I were you, would probably be on baby step 1 and baby step 3. We do mention baby step 4 a little bit when we say 15%, put it away, but really baby step 1, $1,000 in your emergency fund, and baby step 3, building up that same emergency fund so you have 3 to 6 months expenses. That's really what I would focus on. Know that more than anything. 5, 6, and 7, baby step 5, 6, and 7, not really covered too much, so don't spend too much time on that. One of the words that we're going to talk about is pre-authorized checking. And, if we look at this, pre meaning before, authorized meaning that we're giving the okay, and it's going to come out of our checking. So basically this helps us to build discipline. So when you are studying and we're talking about discipline on the test, know that one of the ways that we can be disciplined is by setting up that pre-authorized checking, and that we can make sure we never miss a contribution each month, because it's already automatically going to come out for us, which is great. Another thing we're going to be talking about on the test, and you'll see a couple questions about, is the money market. And the money market is simply a place to park your emergency funds. And that's the $1,000, and then the 3 to 6 months when we get to baby step 3. Why do we do this? Simply because it gives a little bit more interest than a regular old savings account. It's not too much, but remember, our emergency fund's not an investment anyway. We're really not trying to build it or grow it. We're just trying to keep it safe. So a money market would be a great place to put your emergency fund. Another word that we've talked about quite a bit is a sinking fund. And a sinking fund is really just a plan or a strategy for saving money. If you remember from class, we talked about our envelopes, and if this was fun money and we planned on spending $10, and this is, if we're old enough to drive, maybe this is gas and it's $40, and then we decide, hey, I'd like to get a new phone. So then we create an envelope, call it phone. We can only afford to contribute $10 a month. Well, that envelope stays active for as long as it takes to buy a phone. If the phone's going to be $100, then we would put in $10 for 10 months, and then we would have enough. So the sinking fund is just a strategy that we'll use for saving for purchases. So nothing too complicated with sinking fund. This is something that we didn't spend a whole lot of time in class talking about. So I want you to, hopefully, it's good that you're watching this. Hopefully this will help you a little bit. But the 80-20 rule comes up on the test, and this is 80% when we're talking about finances, behavior, and only 20% is information and knowledge. And so, when you leave this class, you're going to have enough information to be a winner at money, to really, be strong with your finances. But the reality is that most people don't actually follow that info, and they take on credit card debt, and they take on car loans, and they take on all this debt, and are unable to really be as successful as they could be. And so really, most of this is going to come down to behavior, whether or not you end up as rich as you want to be or as successful money-wise as you want to be. Not much of it is info. Sure, you have to have the knowledge. you have to have an understanding of how things work, but really whether or not you actually do it is more important, and that's what the 80-20 rule is. We talked a little bit about building wealth being more like a marathon. It's not a sprint. You'll come across quite a few people, maybe not quite a few people, but you'll come across people who promise you great things and fast ways to make money, and it's probably not something that's going to actually work for you. We talked about Murphy's Law. So remember, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So Murphy's Law will probably show itself someplace on there. In terms of format, let's hit that for just a second. We're probably looking at some true-false. I know that there will be some matching. There will be some multiple choice. And then we'll also have somewhere you have to like read a scenario and then ask a question, and we'll call those kind of case studies. And there will be at least one or two of those. The cool thing is that your book does a nice job of setting this up in the same type of format with its test review that's at the end of the chapter. So if you haven't had an opportunity to do the test review, then take this time when you're studying to do the test review. It'll not only familiarize yourself with the stuff, or the format, but also with the stuff that's going to be on there. If you're watching this before the night before the test, also it will provide you an opportunity to understand better what you know and what you don't know. And what you don't know, you can start to ask in class. And so that's another reason why I'd encourage you to do it. We talked about Ben and Arthur. And, we learned a couple things from Ben and Arthur. One of the things we learned is starting early really matters. We also talked about interest rate matters. We saw Ben win by lots and lots of money at the end of his career just because he started early. He didn't contribute more. He didn't do anything different other than start early. And it makes a big difference because that compound interest, that mathematical explosion, gets a chance to start rolling earlier, and it makes a huge difference. So if you don't remember anything from this class, as you get to be 18 years old, 22 years old, whenever you're able to kind of contribute, start early. It makes a huge difference. And then we also learned from them that interest rate matters, because Ben only put $16,000 in, and if his interest rate would have been 0, he would have been only left with $16,000 when he retired, which obviously wouldn't have been enough. But because he got a good interest rate, he ended up with enough money to retire. In fact, I think if I remember correctly, a couple $1 million, which was fantastic. We might talk about the correct order to do things. Remember, we talked about giving, paying yourself, or saving. And then we talked about paying bills, and kind of in that order. And this is personal finance. So, if you're giving a 0, then that's your choice. Paying yourself would either be a baby step, if that's what you're on, or it might be 15%, which is also a baby step. It might be the emergency fund, or it might be, investing, paying yourself first. And then, of course, we're going to have bills that we have to pay. We have to have lights. We have to have water. We have to have those types of things. So that's kind of the order. The reason that we do this is because if we pay our bills first, which kind of seems to make sense in our minds, oftentimes what happens is all the money's gone, and then at the end of the month, when it's time to pay ourselves and it's time to give, we don't have any money left. It's all been spent. And so we want to make this a priority. We want to make this important. And I'm definitely not saying if you make $1,000, give 900 of it away. That's not what I'm saying here. But have a plan, have a budget, and make sure that in that plan you give if you choose, and you definitely pay yourself before you pay bills. Otherwise, it tends to not happen. Let's see, what else might we cover? I might give you some examples of like how you might buy a car. Obviously, if we buy a car, one of the things that we've tried to tell you through class is that debt, if at all possible, should be avoided. So a purchase of a car should just be like anything else, and that means pay cash. And if that means that you can't afford a $25,000 car, then that means you can't afford a $25,000 car. What we might do is take an envelope system or a sinking fund system, and we just label it car, and the average car payment's like $450 for people, but let's just say we take $400 and we save for less than a year. We save for 10 months. That will give us a $4,000 car that we could pay for with cash in less than a year. Is this going to be a brand new car? No, of course not. But the car's not going to be having payments, and that's going to be great. And you could keep kind of doing this. You could purchase this $4,000 car and then keep saving $4,000, trade in your $4,000 car 10 months later, and remember you kept saving, so you had another $4,000, and then, in less than 2 years, with the extra $4,000 you've saved and the trade-in, you can then buy a second car for $8,000. You've kind of upgraded, and you can kind of keep doing that. So there might be some questions on how to purchase stuff, what you should do, the process. We talked a little bit about baby step 1 and baby step 3 being the focus. Remember, baby step 1, and that's $1,000. In an emergency fund, it's not to invest, it's for emergencies. But remember, if you make less than $20,000 or you're a student, it's okay to make that $500 because you probably don't need the full $1,000. And then we talked about baby step 3 being 3 to 6 months. And we really, we didn't come up with an exact number of what that should be. It depends on your house. Some people might have the ability to live for 1 month on $5,000 for 1 month. And if that was the example, times 3, that would be a minimum of $15,000 for 3 months. So we would have, in baby step 3, if it costs $5,000 for us here, it might, if it costs $5,000 per month and we needed 3 months saved, that would be $15,000. So somewhere between 10 and 15,000 is probably a good number. If we have to come up with a number on the test, something like that. It's going to be a big number, we know that, because houses cost a lot. Now, I should say and should mention, and I mentioned this in class, that if we've got 28 students in class, we probably have 28 different numbers for how much it costs to run a house. Some houses run for less than $5,000, some run for more than $5,000, but we're just kind of use some examples. We do need to calculate compound interest. So if you don't know how to do this, make sure you practice just a little bit. So compound interest, and we're going to say for year 1, we start with $1,000. And in this example, we're going to say that we make 10% on our money. So to calculate that, we would simply put into our calculator 1,000 times 0.10. And of course, that gives us $100. So we add $100 and we end year 1 with $1,100. That's pretty simple. I think we can all figure that out. It's where we keep on going that we want to make sure we understand this. And so I'm going to use a different color for year 2. The beginning of year 2, we start with 1,100 because we just dropped down what we ended with year 1, start year 2. We're also going to get 10%. And so again, I go to my calculator and I do 1,100 times 0.10, and it gives me $110. So I add 110, and that gives me $1,210. So that's a little bit more. I get 10 extra dollars because of compound interest. It's not just $100 like it was in year 1. It's $110, which, when we have small numbers, that doesn't seem like it makes that much impact. But when we start to invest over the course of a lifetime and we have hundreds of thousands of dollars, that makes a big difference. And if you looked at Ben's chart in your book, in your workbook, Ben made over $200,000 in the very last year just on interest. So, it's pretty powerful. That's what we call it, a mathematical explosion. So make sure you can do that. I may even have you do a third year, and if you did a third year, of course, it would just be the same thing continued, where we would start year 3 with $1,210. And again, if it was 10% interest, then we would go to our calculator and go 1,210 times 0.10, and we would just kind of keep going out the way we did the first couple of years. I think that pretty much covers most of what we're going to be doing. If I give you a scenario such as this is what's going on in this person's life, and I give you some information about maybe how much credit card debt they owe, how much they make, those types of things, and they say, hey, what do you recommend that this person do? Use the baby steps to answer, hey, what should they be doing? If they have credit card debt, they should probably be on baby step 2, right? Which is pay off all of your debt. If it says that they have 3 to 6 months of emergency fund, what should they do? Well, it sounds like that, and they don't have any debt. It sounds like they're probably done with baby step 1, done with baby step 2. It's told us it's done with baby step 3. So what would be next? Baby step 4. They should be putting 15% of their money towards a retirement account. So if I give you a scenario, just kind of go over in your brain what they've covered baby step wise, and what they should do next. Again, when I asked the question about, hey, here's a scenario, this life scenario of this person, I never said anything about baby steps, but because Mr. O has told you a hint that most of the stuff has to do with baby steps on this test, everything, all your thought processes during the test should be really about the baby steps. So hopefully this will help you. I want questions. Hit the reply to this if you're not sure. If you're watching this before the night before the test and you're still going to have a class day, it's a great opportunity for you to ask any questions you have from this, and we can cover that. So I appreciate you watching, and good luck.